Okay, it's good enough as far as the surface being glued, even though I kind of use one kind of glue on one side and the other kind on the other side. Now that it's had time to sit, it's really good enough as far as the middle part. So the next part is to do something about the edges. And what I'm going to want to do is to pull these over and staple them and glue them and trim them. And I think what I'm going to do is try to do it like a section at a time. And what I mean by that is if I fold this edge over, well then I can't fold this edge over without folding one over the other and making a big bulge. So what I'm going to need to do is to cut each corner out sort of this way. And then I can work one side at a time and go around doing that. Now what I'm going to want is I'm going to want a staple gun with some pretty short staples, and I'm also going to want some glue. Now I did, when I was at the store, I bought some spray glue that I could spray on here and then fold this over, pull it tight and staple it down, and then after that dries I can cut that and then try to slide this whole thing back up in the car. I'm going to cut you off while I go. I know I've got an electric staple gun. I've also got air staple guns, but I want something that's going to shoot the smallest staple I can get, because this here is about 1/8 of an inch when you get the material involved. You don't want a staple longer than maybe about 1/4 of an inch, and even less than 1/4 of an inch if possible. So I'm going to go explore and see what I've got for staples. If need be, I'll go to the hardware store again to get the smallest staples I can find for the gun I've got, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the same piece that I had in the car earlier. And what I'm going to try to do is put it back up in there right exactly where it was before. And I had that little piece of pine board in the front, and I had one in the back, and I was able to stick it up in there, and with those two pine sticks sort of wedge it up into place and put those sticks under there to hold it. Now I'm not going to do anything with this till it sits a while and dries, just because I want to give as much strength to it as I can. I'm using this 3M super strength spray on glue, and that's what I used, and then I stapled it into place to hold it. So I want that to be pretty well in place before I start trying to kind of wrestle it into the car, because it's going to be kind of a strain against all these edges, I'm afraid, and I want as much strength to hold that in place as I can get on it. So that's kind of the plan. I bought some oak. Anytime you're making something like these sticks, see these sticks here, these are little pieces of pine scrap that a neighbor of mine moved away, and he had all these in a bag to go to the dump, and I saved them because I save everything. And I had run those sticks, there's one right there, across the inside of the car. I'd run one up there and then slid this over it and then ran another one back here to hold that in place. Now what I'm eventually going to do is I'm going to remake these sticks out of oak. And the thing about oak is wonderful wood to use for making workable wood in an old car, because a lot of times you need a lot of strength, but you don't want a lot of wood. You don't want it to look like you're with a stick up in the ceiling. What you want it to look like is, if there is a piece of wood in there, if it is cut down as thin as you can get it and shaped so that the edges are smooth and rounded, and you can shape oak, and you can cut a very thin piece of oak and make a really nice piece of wood that blends in with the looks of the car, because it's not square and boxy. This piece of pine, you couldn't make that much smaller and have it still have enough strength to do what you need it to do. But you can take a piece of oak and cut it down into a very thin, well-shaped piece of wood and use it to hold stuff together inside the car. Now, this car has some wood in it, and it has some cork in it. Back in the day, they would put metal together and they would use cork to insulate. If I touch right here, this is cork right here, and it has been shaped and put between these two pieces of metal to seal them together. And this piece right here is wood. This is wood, and you've got metal on either side, but you've got wood in the middle to give it strength, and it's hard, and it's also very heavy if you make everything in the car out of steel. Now, Chevrolets in the 30s and probably in the 20s too were made using a lot of wood, and consequently a lot of early Chevrolets rotted out. And that's why you see more Model A's and Model T's, because Henry Ford didn't use as much wood in his cars as Chevrolets did. And if you'll go back and look, Waylon Wires got some early videos where he was building his Rockabilly Rat Rod, and it's a 32 Chevy. And you'll see him go inside that car and pull the wood out and recut each piece of wood in steel and then put it back in there to give that car enough strength to go down the road the way it does. And that's what happens if you're restoring an early Chevrolet. You have an awful lot of wood to deal with. I'm saying all that because I'm really just talking about the quality of oak. So if I'm going to use some oak in the car, I need some strong wood that's easy to shape. And this is a very hard wood, which consequently allows me to be able to shape it very well. Now, I can tell you some stories about different ways I've used oak in the past. I restored a house that was built in 1842. I lifted that house using oak wedges. I took some oak and I cut them into wedges, and I would drive them between the beams that I put under that house for a foundation to raise the house. And I was literally able to pick the house up with oak wedges because that oak was that strong. I still have a little piece of oak wedge up in my screwdriver box up in the barn there. And a lot of times when I'm needing to, there's sometimes when I just need a piece of hardened shaped oak to fit into a particular place to move or do a variety of things with it. So anyway, I said a lot more than I needed to say, but I want you to realize the value and importance of a good hardwood like oak. So that's about all I need to say about that. This wood, by the way, is what they call Luan, and Luan is a very thin plywood. And you can see there's several layers of wood in that wood. And that's fine for making a big flat surface for me to attach that to. But there's really no pressure on this wood. This is not holding anything up or anything like that. It isn't very strong, but it is a good smooth surface to kind of hold everything together. It gives us a foundation to put this on. Now I'm trimming these corners. When I folded these corners, I trimmed them, but there's little sticky places like this, and I'm cutting off those so that I've got a pretty clean little corner section to go up in there. So, like I said, I'm not going to do anything else with this today. I'm going to let this sit. I may put this inside. In fact, I might take it and set it. If the top of the car is clean, I could set it on top of the car and let it sit. Or what I might do is take this I've got an old blanket over here. I might take that blanket, throw it over the car, put that piece right on top of it. That'd be a good place for it to sit during the night while the glue hardens. And I'll do just that. I got a little tripod thingy here that I use for some of this stuff. And I'm just gonna take and throw that little quilt over the top of the car. See, that way I'm less likely to get dirt on that white material when I throw it up there. If there was dust and dirt on top of the car, it would wind up being on that material, which is not what I want to have happen. So, thanks for watching again. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. See you in the morning. Adios.